Economic freedom peaked about 7 or 8 years ago in the U.S. and has been dropping since then.
Hi, I'm Matt Welch for ReasonTV, and I'm joined today by Jim Roberts of the Heritage Foundation, who is the co-author of the 2012 Index of Economic Freedom, which is, as it sounds like. Thanks for joining us, Jim. I was wondering if you could just give us a little background. When did Heritage start putting out these indices of economic freedom? What are they trying to do? How are they different than other things out there?
The first edition was in 1995, and the idea was conservatives felt that the American public and really the world at large didn't have a good grasp of what were the fundamentals that underlie the great prosperity we've enjoyed in the United States. And so to remind people and to advocate for those policies, limited government, low taxes, strong rule of law, light regulation, and open markets, Heritage started the index.
2012, 2011, 2010 have been kind of bad years in the developed West. Have they been bad years for the world in terms of economic freedom?
They haven't been great, although we had a little bit of an uptick last year. This year, again, it's gone down for the world. There are some bright spots in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia, but bad news for America is that for the third year in a row, there's been a precipitous drop in economic freedom in the United States. And really, economic freedom peaked about 7 or 8 years ago in the U.S. and has been dropping since then.
What are you measuring in the United States that is dropping?
Government spending score has just gone through the roof, as you can imagine. The Keynesian stimulus, which has failed but has left us heavily indebted, this administration and even the prior one, spending too much money and not getting enough for a result, taking money out of the economy that could be better used for private sector investment, and too much regulation. And it's strangling business. It's making business overly cautious. People don't know what to do, especially with Obamacare coming on the horizon. So these have been the main things, but also property rights, where you had the abuse of the rule of law in the United States with the takeover of General Motors and Chrysler, for example, the too big to fail bank bailouts. So these all counted against the United States score, and it has dropped.
Everybody wants to know what about China? People fear China. People look down on China or whatever. How is China doing in terms of economic freedom, and how does that relate to their own economic growth, if at all?
Well, they're sure not doing nearly as well as Hong Kong, which has been #1 for the last 18 years. And meanwhile, the mainland PRC is stuck below the middle of the track. So China, as well as they're doing, think how much better they could be doing if they adopted these principles, if they opened up their political sector as they have their economy, if they had stronger property rights and strong rule of law and genuine open markets and didn't play games with currency. How much better could they be doing? Quite a bit.
Your background is in property rights. You worked for the State Department for a quarter century.
You don't have to put it that way.
Tell us a little bit about China and property rights. Do they have any, for starters?
You know, they do in practice, but not in law. And that's the problem. If you have major investors, they're going to want to see not only property rights enshrined in law, but actually a track record of the government, responsibly handling that, of courts that you don't have to buy off judges, protecting those property rights. That China is going to take time to do that, but they've got to start, and they haven't yet.
Talk a little bit about Western Europe, which you've dealt with in your professional career over the years. On some levels, they have great economic freedom compared to other places, but they're also on the verge of a Eurozone crisis, or in the middle of it, really.
Right.
What does your research tell you about what's happening right now and what the trend lines are?
Well, clearly the euro has failed, the euro experiment, which was probably doomed from the start, although it was an attempt really to keep the French and the Germans from going to war against each other, or at least that's the storyline that Kohl and Mitterrand agreed 20 years ago. But it hasn't worked out. The Southern Europeans have been kind of free riders for as long as the party went on, but now the party's over, and they're going to have to figure a way to back out of the euro. And even countries like Sweden, famous for socialist governments, are figuring this out and trying to make changes. I've recently sent a team to Chile to figure out how Chile privatized their social security system, for example. So, and Denmark has also been much more flexible, and they have done better in our index as a result.
You've had some experience in Eastern Europe, not necessarily in 2011, but take from 1995 when you guys started doing this. What's the overall picture look like? Are things still improving there, or are they starting to hit roadblocks?
They've improved. Certainly, the countries, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, they have done very well. and Slovenia. But the rest of the former Yugoslavia, maybe Croatia has done okay. There's still too much corruption in Bulgaria and Romania. They were led into the European Union, I think, probably a little early, but also in line with their NATO membership. So there were political considerations at work there. There's still a lot to do there. The Serbs are still too much kind of have the Russian kind of mentality in terms of the control and the lack of trust in the market. So there's some work to do, but there's been some progress.
And give us a nice story from sub-Saharan Africa, which we're not used to hearing nice stories from necessarily over the last 20 years.
Well, Maruritius, actually, which if you can count that, was out in the ocean, but they've now made it into the top 10 in the world for the first time African countries ever made it into the top 10. The big question, of course, is South Africa. I was just there a few weeks ago, actually, in Southern Africa. And the question now is, how is the ANC going to go forward? Are they going to take advantage of this rich legacy, this inheritance of this great first world developed country in Africa, and promote the policies, the rule of law, the investment regimes, the trust in the Constitution, or are they going to go the way of a Zimbabwe? That's really the big question. But there's tremendous potential, and the people want to work. The people want to be entrepreneurial. They just need a chance.
Thank you very much. For ReasonTV, I am Matt Welch.